Hi everyone, it's Cheryl Millett live at 5. This is Mondays on Facebook, and live at 5 is meant to bring up various things around health, so it's like all things healthy in that respect. The idea here is to bring up a number of topics that what you would find normally in our day-to-day would not be brought up, would not be discussed. And one of the things that I present on and present on only, which I wanted to bring up today, I mentioned it that I would bring it up at times, is healthy fats. It is a macronutrient, and it's one of those things that for decades, and still probably just kind of like in our belief structure, as is fats make us fat. And they don't make us fat at one level. So this is where we talk about the both sides of it. There are definitely fats that exist out there that are unhealthy fats. Hi, Arlene. And the unhealthy fats at one level are even embedded in the, or not embedded in Canada Health Canada and the Food Guide, where in Canada, the hydrogenated oils are now banned from Canada. So when we used to think of things as hydrogenated vegetable oils being margarines, and that is banned here in Canada. They shouldn't be on any of the products. So we get margarine, yes, but there's another process, and they mix it with palm oil and things like that. But here's the thing. The processing part for fats is what becomes very critical in the sense of, is it the optimum? So now we're going to talk about the optimum fats are those that are found in nature, that are in whole foods, that are balanced, that are from the animals that are eating their natural diet. And I'll talk about that in a minute. The idea is we need enough healthy fats, and that would be true of anything. You need enough minerals, enough vitamins. You would need enough in the right balance of amino acids, essential fatty acids, be it omega-6, omega-3, the right amount and the right balance. But everybody's probably going to be different. So if you are an athlete, you probably will need more of most of the above. And if you're not an athlete, probably not so much. But the idea is certain conditions, actually, there's absolutely deficiencies because of the stress of conditions, the stress of taking medications, the stress of the pain that comes with having issues. And essential fatty acids are critical. Now, I'm saying essential fatty acids is another term. We think of fats, another terms like lipids, triglyceride molecules, which is where the fatty acids are attached to. But to plain and simple, fats themselves are not all bad, and we need them. You've heard this before, that our brain is mostly fats, but that actually includes cholesterol as well. Cholesterol is very important for the brain. So let's think about the process, back to the processing of fats. The processing of fats, if it's not like a cold-pressed olive oil, a truly cold-pressed olive oil, which I've talked about, where in the pressing of things, when you press things and there's enough friction, there can be heat enough. And I believe that's really what the whole thing about cold-pressed olive oil, it's not cold-pressed like you think, comes in, which is the friction cause. So I used to work at food processing for 20 years. I'm very familiar with the vegetable processing, very familiar that we do have to ask questions. There's other ways to look at it. Now, the fats that we think are healthy, like coconut oil, like cold-pressed olive oil, and nuts and seeds and from the whole foods. What else am I trying to think of? So you've got, whole foods, nuts and seeds that way. But the other ones on the market are the vegetable oil, which again comes from seeds, but they're not whole seeds anymore. They're pressed. So it's the corn oil, it's the sunflower oil, and these oils are actually highly processed. So if you haven't heard of this, and you can actually look it up, I might look up in my blog where I have the refinery process there. But all you really need to know is it's highly processed, and we call it RBD in food processing, refined, which is heat, bleached, and deodorized, amongst a few other things. The idea is, if we can understand that when we think of commercialization, and grocery stores is a commercialization of foods so that we can have them readily available for us, this requires quite often shelf stability, safety. And when you refine vegetable oils, you're bringing in those factors. It's very difficult to have cold press a lot of oils and be able to be shelf stable. Never mind shelf stable. By the time it gets on the shelf, it's produced, it's put into warehouse, and then it gets distributed, and then it's stored again. So they really need a much longer shelf life. And for the food, absolutely, because fats, especially vegetable oils, are not that stable. They actually, what I mean by that is they actually oxidize and go rancid, is probably a word that you're familiar with. And rancid oils is not what you want to put in your body, even if they're fresh oils gone rancid. But refined oils, they're not rancid as much as there's part of that there going on, but there's other things. The idea with fats is to consume enough of the healthy fats ongoingly, preferably from your whole foods or something of the like. And even coconut oil today, cold pressed, it actually may be refined. So you actually got to look at coconut oil to make sure that it's cold pressed and that it's not refined, which is slightly yellow color. And olive oils, and I've said this before, I've heard that 8 billion barrels, something like that, is actually sold in the world, but only 3 of those are actually true olive oil. That's all that is produced. So somewhere along the line, it's being cut with other oil or mixed with other oil. And it's very easy to do that, they said, based on, I think it's taste. Is it taste or smell? I think it's taste. But because, no, it's smell. You can tell the olive oil by the smell, and whether it's a good one or a bad one. There's a chemical, it might even, because of the fumes coming off, you might even notice it irritates your eyes. It would irritate your nose. And so a true olive oil will be very, well, it'll smell earthy. It'll smell like food. It'll smell like something that came from the tree, whereas the other ones will be dyed with even chlorophyll. You know, you want to make vegetable or lighter oil look green like olive oil, just add some chlorophyll. That's natural, but you're not getting the same oil that way. So let's kind of dive in a little bit more. When we think of fats, what does it do for our body? At one level, it's lubricating. So if you think about soft skin, if you think about moving your joints, this is lubrication, and that is important. But on another level, let's just take it up. At another level, the brain, which is mostly fats in that genre, is what operates the body. That's what I usually call that higher functioning. Now, most people understand that the health industry is a business now, and businesses are run like businesses for the reasons they are, and you have a wide range of people doing it for the reasons they're doing it. But the fats that come into play, again, if it's not shelf stable, then you can't make it commercialized, cannot put it on all the food. So many of us are, and I have for many years, consumed things that had vegetable oils in it. And today, even more so, as I've heard from a chemist, it's a lubricant of the food industry. Because if you put oil in machinery, if you put oil as far as to move food, to mix food, it's easier. It's easier to mix. So a lot of the foods, if they don't have oil, just like our skin not having oil, would actually be very hard and crunchy. Like crackers will be softer if they have fat in it. Cookies will be softer if they have fat in it. I don't know if I know of any cookie recipes without it. But the idea, the oils are required in the recipe to bring that about. So I just want to say, check out your foods just and see where they are. Now, it might be called canola oil, could be called soybean oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, combination, maybe just vegetable oil. You got palm oils. Unlike sugars, there's really only so many names they go under. And quite frankly, they usually use oil in the name of it. So you'll know what that is. But so people, I think what I want to really say now, yes, the skin lubrication, yes, the brain runs the body through, we're talking immune system, endocrine system, your hormonals, your chemistry, the mechanical, your digestive process, the motility of the food moving from here and out is actually dependent upon the nervous system, the heartbeat dependent upon the nervous system, the blood pressure, so many, just name it. And it is operated by the nervous system. The nervous system, part of it is the brain. And what I probably would like to say here really is the fats that we consume can either make our body efficient and operate and detoxify and cleanse and regenerate and communicate. That's what fats will be so critical about. Doesn't mean that the proteins aren't the hormones. Yes, we need those amino acids, and we need the vitamins and minerals when we think of enzymes even. So that all the functions require the essentials, oxygen included. The thing with fats that I've learned is that the fats themselves, if they are denatured, they could be harming our body. So never mind not giving us the right fats to actually make our body function, detoxify, move, think. But if we put in the unhealthy fats, we're actually interfering with detoxifying, with regenerating, with healing. And to get to that big word called inflammation, which everybody's hearing about more and more, and they're saying it's the root cause of disease, but I believe it's not the root cause of disease. And it's the analogy that I give is if you injure your knee, if you fall down and trip, let's say you fell over an object on the floor. So you fell over, you tripped over, and you fell down and you hit your knee, call it an injury, and you got inflammation, which is the swelling. Would you say that inflammation was the root cause of the injury? Or would you say the tripping was the root cause of the injury? It would be the tripping. So when we think of inflammation as being part of, and this is medical, you can look this up, every single condition and disease that exists out there, inflammation, they can find inflammation. But inflammation is not the root cause. And now this is what I want to get about fats. Fats, essential fatty acids particularly, actually help with managing the inflammation. Now, the reason why I kind of bring it in as that, at least that part, is you want the inflammation. You want the body to get into action to fight off the viruses. That's the fevers and inflammatory response. You want the body to get into that acute, which is, acute means it's happening for a short period of time. It's happening because it's needed, and this is acute. When the inflammation can't be managed because we do not have the right communication, let's say, then we go into chronic inflammation, which is all the diseases you hear about, diabetes, cancer, and all the things with itis, so arthritis, even ulcers, appendicitis. Itis means inflammation in medical terms. And what I've learned over the years is that these essential fatty acids that are essential, so they say, but found in the body and found in every cell membrane, critical for nerve function, which I've just said, nerve function is responsible for everything in the body. Big, it's huge, it's responsible for everything moving in the body, all the communication in the body. So here we have essential fatty acids, but most people are thinking essential fatty acids from, especially if they're trying to heal and they got a condition, from plant sources. Well, if you understand Ayurvedic and traditional Chinese medicine and alternative, and even a number of medical doctors I spoke to, the digestive system is not functioning optimally when people have conditions. It is just not. And that was, even when I did school in my degree 12 years ago, that was my conclusion, that the digestive system is dysfunctioning every time. Now, sometimes it's dysfunctioning, but you don't have the condition. Right? So it's dysfunctioning, but you don't have the condition. That gets to my point about plant essential fatty acids. Our body is essentially not able to absorb them the same way, not able to use them the same way. And this is why plants can give our body a break. Yes, in digestion, it's lighter. And you hear about these juice cleanses and stuff like that. Well, that's giving our body a break it needs. Very simplistic digestion, digesting food, so that the body can cleanse, but take out the mucus, do some housekeeping, things like that. It's not necessarily the cleansing per se. It's more the body has the break it needs in order to do what it's doing. Having minimal, be it oxygen and water, when we talk about water fasts and stuff. So minimally, you have those things, and the body can then do what it's designed to do. But if you're deficient in things, this is a bit of a different story here. When you're deficient in the fats, or the healthy fats, or the essential fatty acids, and the brain is not communicating, what the body will do is it will, of course, use storages of fat that you have in your body for energy and for what it can do. That makes sense. You eat less, you do a cleanse, you go detox, and you're losing fat. You might be losing muscle too. So, it's that, this and that, but can't describe everything like I'd like to here. But what I've learned is the fish oils is actually, now I'm getting back to the essential fatty acids or omegas that people talk to them too. The fish oils are not what you think they are. The fish oils are a waste byproduct of the fishing industry. And because I worked in food processing, and I know that, fishing, eat fish, Mediterranean diet is big and growing around the world, then you have all of this fish product waste that's left. And in the 80s, they decided that they were going to, yes, it is an omega, but it's not the same omega that we have. We're mammals, we're not a fish. So what happens with fish oil, remember I was talking about stability. The fish oil is not that stable. When it's not that stable, according to some research, it's already rancid, 50% or more by the time you consume it. No surprises there, people, because a lot of people, when they take fish oils, they get the burping, they get the, I'll just call it digestive distress. The stomach, the burping, it would be just clearly one clear, simple symptom. But that's what, fish oil is a waste byproduct. Yes, it's omega, they're not lying, but the idea is the way our system uses omegas is we're not getting what we need out of the fish oil. So if you ask people, or ask yourself if you're taking fish oil, what have you noticed? hundreds of people that I've asked whether they knew I was a practitioner or not have said, I don't notice anything. And if anybody said that they noticed anything, most of it had to do with that thing I told you earlier, the lubrication part. A lower kind of functioning need for these essential fatty acids. But the fish oil, it is different. It doesn't absorb effectively. But something that I learned about 10 years ago, which I talked to, I'm happy to communicate this here on Live at 5, but the idea is that mammalian oils are just like us. And most of the mammal ones are going to be saturated. You know, we're thinking cow and we're thinking lamb and all those, and they're going to be saturated. And listen, eggs, people, are not the mammalian essential fatty acids. Eggs come from chickens. Chickens are not mammals. Chickens, and that's poultry. So even the omegas that you would get from eggs would actually be not like us. I'm not going to go into biological stuff here, but they're just not like us. So the mammalian one would actually absorb under the tongue, going directly into the bloodstream, the carotid artery, and into the brain. And this is where people are getting effects, including myself, within one day. But the research, which people like, is where the nerves grew back. So diabetes has a number of complications, and I even did an essay on diabetes, and I never heard of this word called neuropathy. Now, neuropathy is nerve damage, and it can happen anywhere in your body. The complications from diabetes, the lower limb amputation, is peripheral neuropathy. Blindness is neuropathy of the eye, the corneal nerve fiber length. So that was measured in the diabetic research. And over 1 year with type 1 diabetes, because that's more of a control, they are definitely on insulin, and they actually had their nerves grow back, which is unheard of in the medical, on average 29%. So when you grow your nerves back, which we've always thought, no, you lose brain cells, that's it, they're gone. Well, let's not move so fast here, even though they just measured the nerve in the eye is coming back. And then these are people with diabetes will tell you that their lifespan is supposedly shorter, much shorter. And complications are always it's inevitable. It's kind of like they come in, they creep in, and then eventually some sooner, some more, some intensified. But the idea is that these complications are inevitable. And with the seal oil, which I was talking about now, it's raw, it's not refined. All the other seal oil on the market go through what I call the standard processing for oils, which is, there's only so many plants. So you can see why raw oil doesn't really exist, because oil is much harder to clean. You've worked and cooked with oil, and it's much harder to clean. Get the soap, get the hot water, get the scrubby pad out, and heaven forbid you actually burn your oil. But the idea is working with oils, and it's much easier to work with the standard processing plants. And so that's all refined, bleached, and deodorized. But the seal oil that is raw, that's where the magic happens. And it's very, what would Sherlock Holmes say? Sherlock Holmes is just, or somebody would say, that's just logical. And what I've seen is a blind person take it, and she explained to me the root of sublingual. So that's how I truly believe or know that the sublingual absorption is happening and bypassing the unpredictable digestive system. So the conditions that could best be helped by raw seal oil, raw mammalian oil, is actually MS, that's a nervous condition. I'm going to say, this might be a little bit shocking to you, but not, is actually children with autism. So that's very much a nervous condition. And so lots there. They usually have therapeutic dosing. Anybody who's gone through cancer and cancer treatments, treatment, they would always have nerve damage. That's what the doctor told me on McGill. That's another university project going on with the raw seal oil. Unfortunately, it's not published like the one out of UFT where the nerves grew back in the eye. So the idea here is that many conditions affect the nerves. Diabetes affects the circulation, therefore it affects the nerves, neuropathy. And nerve damage is the other word you would hear, probably more layman terms, nerve damage. And what we want to do is we want to be able to nourish or grow back those nerves. The idea is to manage inflammation, but also to have those nerves functioning optimally, and as many as you need, and then some, so that the communication within your body is optimum, right? So that communication, the nervous system, is critical in so many functions. And then the idea, on the other hand, again, to reiterate, is the inflammation. You want to be able to have the communication on one hand and the inflammation being balanced, managed over here, and this being balanced. So you want the immune system to be functioning so that it can help with, injury, infection, irritation. And then you want the omega-3, as they call, to bring down the inflammation. So you want the omega-6 to be able to kick into action when need be for things that are causing inflammation in the body. And then you want the omega-3 to come in and actually lower the inflammation. It's like a balancing act, and we need both. Now, some people will say, well, Cheryl, I get enough omega-6. Well, back to the thing about unhealthy fats. The majority of omega-6 that people are getting are unhealthy omega-6. They're the ones from oxidized oils. They are more abundant in foods for the reasons they are, especially seeds. Because remember I said omega-6 is inflammatory. Well, what happens when you think a seed needs to grow? So you have the seed with a hard shell for the purpose it does, and this seed actually wants to burst out of its shell. That bursting is an inflammatory reaction. It's inflammatory. So when you consume the very seeds and nuts and you look at the ratios, and I did this for a conference, you'll see that most times it's omega-6s are, I think kernels of corn are like 60 omega-6 to 1 omega-3. And I think it's almonds, so it's been a while now, like 2,000 to 1, 2,000 omega-6 to 1 omega-3. Walnuts are better, but you got to be careful. Walnuts do go rancid, and the oil, even though it says it's good for several months or more, has been studied and shown only to be good for a month. So walnut oil. Better to eat the whole walnuts, but make sure you store them properly. But getting back to the higher functioning and needing these essential fatty acids, again, those plant sources from seeds and algae and stuff like that, they have to be converted. They have to be digested, and they have to be converted to a longer chain. That's probably something. So mammalian, longer chain, short plant, and fish, that much longer, but not as long as mammalian. And the idea is we want to manage this inflammation. We want the body to be strong enough to handle anything that's coming at us and to heal in the amount of time natural healing would take, so that you're not carrying on with this stuff into a chronic state. And how many people I've been hearing lately, they've got a cough, and their cough has been with them for weeks. And other things too come about. They have injuries, and injuries still a year later, they're still having injuries. And this is signs. That's how you can look at them. You can look at them as signs. You can look at them as symptoms, as to have the nervous system, the whole body. In a healthy diet, generally speaking, is always good. But the fats is a key component that most people don't understand well enough. And it is a switch and a change from the typical diets. Because if you eat corn chips, if you eat nacho chips, if you eat crackers, if you eat most of the breads have it in it, salad dressings, cereals, they'll spray nuts with vegetable oil, they'll spray organic raisins with vegetable oil. Like I said, it's the lubricant of the food industry. It would help the raisins not stick, right? Kind of logical. That's kind of why they use it. But the idea here is to absolutely bring up the importance of healthy fats versus unhealthy fats, and to recognize where both of them are, and to make sure that you're in balance. But if you have any condition at all, just about any condition, most likely the healthy fats are not where they need to be, and probably the essential fatty acids. And I speak from experience, having seen test results based on omega-3, even with vegans or raw foodists, right, who eat a lot of healthy food if we want to. They don't all have to, but they were so deficient in omega-3. It was almost mind-blowing. And the factors that come into play here is stress. So if you're under stress, if you're not even sitting and eating, those things would interfere with digestion. And that whole digestion for plant is absolutely so important to have. That's why some people have timing is an issue. Yes, you can be vegan for certain parts of time, but you got to recognize, is it interfering with brain function? Is it interfering with certain things? And certainly I know some raw foodists that have been in denial and had to go to like raw milk, let's say, and eggs and things like that. And it's still raw, so there's still raw food, which I'm a big proponent of. But the idea is that's not the way we're used to eating. And a lot of the food, when it goes through commercial, it's, how many hands and it's this and that, but not quite the food that kind of falls into raw food. Quite often it's directly, you grow it, you get directly, you forage it, it's wild, all of those things, and know people who know things. But anyway, so here's healthy fats, and I wanted to know if anybody had any questions about fats, any questions about the fish oil. And if you've taken fish oil, maybe you can pipe in and share if you've noticed anything with it. And I'll just say that there have been people that I've worked with, call it on field studies, or others I've heard through other practitioners, where they'd actually caused inflammation. So they kept taking more and more of the seal oil, thinking that's what they needed to do when they had an injury. And when they weren't getting their results, they would take more. When I had them come off the fish oil, so what we call it is, there's about a 3 or 4 day, come off the fish oil, get it out of the system, and then go on the raw seal oil, magic happened. I don't like to use the word magic, but the idea is when the body gets what it needs. I mean, if you were thirsty, if you were dehydrated and you drink water, wow, magic would happen. I mean, it would just, you'd feel, your brain would feel different, you would sleep better. Dehydration it's a whole other topic, and what water to drink is a whole other topic. But fats and water don't mix. Fats are required for every cell membrane, along with all the water we have in our body, in order to maintain, maintain balance, maintain the cell structure, right? So if everything was water, it all mixed, right? So you have these cells, and they're fluid in the water-based stuff that we have in our body, but they need to have that structure, and it's that lipid, let's call it fats membrane, that it's there, that's required to keep the structure. But not only the structure of the cell, the structures of the things in the cell as well. So you have these organelles, as they call it, and they produce your energy. There you go. They produce your energy. Another key thing for having fats is I'm not a huge keto person, never have been drawn to it. I have all my reasons for that. I hear more and more now that people are talking about the side effects of keto. What I would really caution anybody, if you've got weight to lose and you're doing keto, great. But when you get just about 5 or 10 pounds that you have left, that's where I would stop. Okay, that's where I would stop. Because, I'll just share it if you want me to share it. Yes, so where can I buy it and why isn't it in the stores? Yeah. The raw seal oil isn't in the stores primarily because it is a high-end product. And the only way that to make it a decent price for people and not to have, you have the manufacturing, and then there's, distribution, and then there's the stores. And so all of these layers need to make money. And when I talked about the standard process that most vegetable oils go through, or oils or fish oils will go through, that's cheapest. That's the cheapest to do. They work on efficiencies. They will, it'll cost whatever cents, per liter. I'll just use those terms. Whereas when you're producing something in smaller batches and you have created your own, your own assembly line, processing line in order to do this, and you're not using it day in and day out, right? You're not using it and producing raw seal oil day in and day out, then it's not efficient and it costs more. So the question is, why isn't it in stores? That's really the main reason. So it has to be sold online. It's a manufacturer to consumer. And that's the key thing. It's not an MLM company, but the key thing is we need to keep the costs down. And that's the best. The best way for people to get it is to have, because it's kind of somewhat like an affiliate program where I can sign you up and you get 20-25% off. That, for those people who are going to use it regularly, that's a gift in some way. You get it cheaper. And you can always buy it in case too from me. I've been consuming it for over, almost 11 years. And I noticed it the first day where I noticed my brain turned on. It's like a switch. It's like, wow. And you don't know your brain is turned off to whatever degree until it actually is turned on. You don't really know what it feels good, feels healthy, unless you've ever been there. So a lot of people are in these states of unhealthiness, and they really don't know what a optimum healthy kind of feeling is. But if you ever had it, go back to that state. That's the state we want to kind of create. And seal oil is one of those things where I feel that it is the answer to people who have this miscommunication, nerve condition, not managing inflammation. It's very, very important to have that. Now, I know I was just going to touch on something and I forgot what it was. Yeah, but it might come back to me. Any other questions here about anything about fats? Any questions whatsoever? You may have read a lot of books. You might have read, but there isn't any book on seal oil. There isn't any book with seal oil in it, except for I did add it into a chapter of my book. So this whole understanding of fish oil not being like us, the triglyceride molecules being different, or the molecules being different and not being absorbed, and the raw seal oil under the tongue, like the Inuit know this. They would give their pregnant women blubber, because what that blubber is doing for the mother is it is totally nourishing her, because she has this baby that is growing. And it's so important that as the baby is growing, that it gets all the essential fatty acids it needs. It is so, so valuable for that. And this is so, so important when we think of where babies are in their various health conditions. They need to be as strong as they are with communication nervous system, which would support the immune system. And that is so important. Again, all allergies would have an inflammatory component to it as well. So I could talk forever on healthy fats and how it all ties in. But the idea is to think brain functioning and to think communication in your body from your brain. So everything needs that communication. If you want to move your hand, the brain, all that muscle movement and motility through the digestive system, absolutely. Communication for chemicals being produced by the hormonal system, hormones, the chemistry, enzymes and stuff, that is all nervous system communication. So you can see why chiropractors would be so, I'm not saying they have blinders on, but they are super, super focused on the nervous system. You can see why that is, because that is that. I mean, you have any subluxations, like they say, and pinching nerves. Well, I hear it's painful. I don't ever want a pinching nerve. But the idea is it does cause pain when we have nerve damage or we interfere severely with nerve damage. That's what neuropathy is, nerve damage. And so the people with neuropathy are looking at pins and needles. So if all of us can remember what it feels like for our foot to go numb, hand to go numb, and then the circulation is coming back into that part of the body, and that you feel that pins and needles, that's there because the nervous system and all the cells need the oxygen from the circulatory system. So you don't have any oxygen and you have issues with your circulatory system. This is where nerve damage can happen as well. So I'm just going to leave it there. I don't know if you have any questions whatsoever at now or later. It's okay. If you see me presenting on omegas, then I'll go through it in a sense of history, a sense of what they're good for, a sense of how our body uses them, the different omegas, and how they're different. So what are the differences between the different sources of omegas, and then the research and so forth. That's kind of my typical presentation with that. However, if something is new or research or certain conditions or certain things come up, then I'll kind of always change up the presentation based on the current information. But I want to thank everybody for coming on board. I know it was a little bit lengthier today, but fats are hugely important. You can't get enough of them. They are used up all the time, people. So some people will take a bottle of the seal oil and they say, hey, I'm good to go now. I feel good. No, because like water, you have to keep replenishing. You have to keep replenishing. Oh, I just remembered what I was going to talk about. So I'll bring it in here. And this is very critical. Your body depends on oxygen. Yes. And your body then produces from oxygen as well, energy. So if everything is energy and energy is required for the functioning in our body, then the idea is that the fatty acids are a good source of energy versus the glucose, let's say the sugar, right? So if you have fatty acids and you have the sugar, and this will be, the fatty acids will be so much more efficient in producing energy than what the glucose is, which makes sense. If you want to have quick sugar, a quick energy, a quick boost or whatever, you're going to take glucose. That's going to, if you're hungry, if you need the glucose for the brain, let's say, it is so much easier to have a glass of orange juice than it would be to have a spoonful of olive oil or even, the seal oil. The idea here is it is more efficient, and you do want to have a a stored source, an ongoing source of these fatty acids coming into the body, and some stored absolutely around your body so that you can use it. But I hope it's been informative. I want to wish everybody a wonderful evening. Here in Toronto, it's absolutely beautiful. I'll post some links down below for some research I mentioned, or even where to purchase the seal oil, and answer any of your questions on it for sure. But it's a topic that's very close to me, and I could speak to it for a day, all the different things. So welcome any questions. Have a great week, a healthy week. All the best of health until next Monday at Live at 5. And take care. Thanks for coming on, everyone. Cheryl and Monica and Annette and Ivan, Arlene, Donna. Yes, great. Wonderful. So take care, everyone. Bye for now. Best of health, and hope to see you next week.